Welcome, everyone. It's Matt, and today we're going to talk about the important things to do first for Dynamax and Gigantamax units. A lot of people don't understand what is the optimal way to increase your Pokemon so that you can solve any issue in this new mode where I know we're going to get some of the coolest Pokemon. So stay tuned. All right, I'm going to list the biggest factors that drive differences overall. And they're going to kind of sound dumb, but it's best to start here. The different Pokemon themselves obviously are going to drive your different abilities and stats and all that jazz. Once we get through that, the next biggest difference is going to be, at least for Dynamax and Gigantamax, is the skill level. And what I mean by the skill level is the max attack, the max guard, the max spirit. Each level drives a huge difference, and I will prove that via math in the next couple of minutes. But skill level is your second biggest driver overall. Third is the Gigantamax Dynamax, and that only drives for your max attack. The Dynamax starts with 250 power and ends with 350. The Gigantamax starts with 350 and ends with 450. Next is the Pokemon level, and this drives into the Pokemon stats, which will affect attacking and healing capabilities specifically, and kind of the defense. And what defense does is a higher defense will give you slightly less damage overall. And finally, the Pokemon IVs are the least amount of the differences overall. Obviously, Pokemon is a min-max game. We're going to try to maximize the most efficiencies overall. And these IVs drive stats throughout all the levels, but all in all, the stats differences aren't very much at all. All right, we're going to go with the skill level differences first. And no matter what you're doing, the skill levels are really what's going to drive most of the Pokemon that you're going to be able to use. And even if you don't have leveled units, if you have higher attack, especially on your attack units, you're still going to be very useful on your team. And for all this, Dynamax and Gigantamax, the only difference that we see in the game at all is going to be on the attack skill, and it's basically based off of 100 power. Now, this is actually a pretty large difference, and that's why I know my tier videos, people are like, well, Mad, you're lowering the Dynamax by 2, 3. That's pretty harsh. But honestly, the Gigantamax are always going to care about the power. And when we're going to be dealing with tanky and our tank units, those differences are a lot smaller. And at that point, honestly, I'd rather just use my G-Max unit to tank than the D-Max unit. But if you have a better D-Max IV for defense and all that, you can then separate overall. But it just makes more sense to focus all of your energy onto your Gigantamax unit. Next is Guard. Guard does not matter about stats at all. All it does is it gives you a shield of between 20 and 60 HP. It doesn't sound like an awful lot, but you can use 3 shields overall. You can't have anything more than 3 shields. If you have 2 1/4 shield and use a shield, you'll then go up to 3, not 3 1/4. There's no over shielding in this game, basically. So 3 level 1s equals a level 3, and that's why it's so powerful to increase your guard. You can go from 20 HP with 1 shield up to 180 HP with 3 shields of level 3. And 180 HP is, on average, the same amount of hit points that you're going to see on most Pokemon. The only Pokemon you don't really see that isn't equivalent to are our healers or the spirit. And that's why they're so powerful in the spirit category, which I'll talk about next. But before we finish, Guard also gives you a chance to provoke the Pokemon into doing a single attack. It doesn't always work. I don't have the greatest feel to give you the exact like percentages. I do know that as the battle goes on, tanking becomes less and less effective, but it still does have a good chance of working. It really helps if you could get the unit that you're attacking to do a single attack, especially against you with your shield. It eliminates a lot of the damage capability can do. And if you're the tank and your unit is strong enough and can easily survive, it can be done repeatedly and allows the other three teammates to be able to keep their units perfectly healthy and focus only on attack. This is by far the fastest way to be able to defeat these Dynamax and Gigantamax, and it is very, very useful overall. Finally, Spirit is just totally dependent on the Pokemon's max HP. So IV and level play the largest role on healers, which is a little frustrating. Why is it a little frustrating? Because it is very expensive. Now, if you are only soloing and you're only doing Dynamax, then I'm going to be honest, Spirit is not necessary for you to touch at all, period. End of story. Spirit, though, is actually potentially a more useful tactic than guard if you have if you're going to be fighting full teams of 4 or even teams of 3. For like Lapras, it does tend to be more effective, but it requires an awful lot of communication, and this is by far the hardest part. And generally, I would still be using a tank unit and a healing unit combined. And right now, we've really only got 2 healers that I would say that are worth trying this tactic. One of them is Greedent. This is not exactly the strongest Pokemon, and the other one is Lapras. Everyone else, I would say, aren't the greatest healers right now. But a Spirit will heal less to a single Pokemon, but because it affects the entire team, it does more healing in general than a guard. But if you're doing really well in tank format, then you don't need Spirit as much. But occasionally, like one of my Moltres fights, it just would not stop spamming its super spread out attack. And luckily, I was using my Lapras. And I was able to use my Lapras to heal to keep my teammates in the fight and to be able to stay 5 for 5 with my Moltres battles. All right, now that I've kind of long-winded a lot more than I wanted to on that, let's go with the Pokemon level and IV. So all Pokemon have a set of IV, and these will drive its stats along with its level. The higher the IVs and higher the level, the better your stats and the better your Pokemon will be. Dynamax and Gigantamax has literally zero effect on your IV and stats other than attack power. And this is not attack stats, this is the attack power of the one move when you are transformed. So the stats are all exactly the same. So defenders and healers especially, there is no difference between a Dynamax and a Gigantamax at all. We're going to go through Metagross, who has been my absolute king on most of these battles, except for obviously Moltres. And it has pretty large stats in all 3 categories. Healing's the lowest of the 3, but with those large stats, it does have the largest differences in IV and TLDR. It's going to be a lot smaller than you think it is. So let's go with Pokemon level and IV and Metagross attack. So what we've got here is I have weather boosted versus non-weather boosted. The only difference between a weather boosted and non-weather boosted is if does it start level 20 or level 25. Now, I have 0, 5, 10, and 15 IV, and so this IV would be an attack. The floor, if you get your creatures in a Dynamax or, obviously this one's a Dynamax or a Gigantamax battle, it's going to be a floor of 10 IV, But if you trade, you could get lower IVs as well. And so I did include the lower IVs just to give you an overall summary of the differences. So at level 20, we have 0% difference between, a 0 IV and a 0 IV. But a 0 IV to a 5 IV leads to only a 5.9% difference overall. And even at level 25, it's less than that for the between the 0 and 5. But if you go between 10 and 15, actually, I think I might have the 1.92 off, but whatever. The differences here is at level 20, the difference between a 10 IV and a 15 IV, which 95% of trainers are only going to see, is 2%. And so, yes, I have done a lot of complaints on my videos about how poor my IVs are. But all in all, even the worst IVs compared to the best IVs, you're looking at here at around 2.6, 2.3%. And that's from level 20 comparisons. And if you just go same level, it's going to be roughly 2%. So all in all, it is not the largest difference here, but a lot of people ask me, hey, what are my IVs? Should I be focusing on IVs? And I really wanted to do a very specific video on, do IVs really matter? And in all honesty, no, not really. All right. So we're going to do Pokemon overall attack now. This is going to have the include for the Dynamax power differences between levels 1 through 3. We're all assuming here of the same IV stat. Doesn't matter if it's 0 or 15. They're pretty much even. Here, though, I do have it at all. These will be assuming a 15 or perfect IV in its stat, which only, if it's even 0, it's only going to drive it by about 0.2. It's that small. So from level 20 to level 50, you could gain 40.7% increase. Increasing your levels from level 1 to level 3 is a 40% increase. So with all that Stardust going from level 20 to level 50 on top of the candies, so we're talking around 278 normal, 290 XLs, plus almost 500,000 Stardust. I think it's 450,000, but you're only going to get 0.7% more than spending the max particles to go from level 1 to level 3. And so that's why when people ask, what should I be doing? Or in my communities, people who don't play an awful lot, so that they have really small Stardust totals, and one of them's my son. A lot of people are confused, like, why haven't you leveled any of his units? And honestly, it's enough of a benefit to get from level 1 to level 3 than for your max attack. So max attack level 1 to max attack level 3 than it is to level all the way up. And because level 40 to level 50 is so expensive, it's $250,000 Stardust and all those XL candies, that generally people who are, I would call them carriers, I only tell them, look, max your attack at level 3 and go to level 40. Any more is mostly a waste. Unless if you are trying to solo or even duo with a relatively weak help, there's no real need right now to boost most things up to level 50. But with all that said, my Metagross has been used so much and has been so powerful that I have level 50 my Metagross, but it's the only Dynamax or Gigantamax that is above level 4 on my team. Next is the overall defense. And for the shields here, the shields are based on HP. And when you're tanking, it's going to be based off your defense. So a level 20 with a 0 defense IV is and a level 15 at 15 IV at level 20. So a 15 IV level 20 will take 6.6 less damage than a level 0, IV 0 of a level 20. Leveling up tanks to level 40 is important because you do reduce an awful lot of your damage. And going to level 50 is about 40.4%, roughly the same number as your attack. And it also gives you more HP. A level 20 0 IV HP compared to a level 15 IV at level 20 is 8%. And going from level 20 to level 50 gives you roughly another 41% more HP. So all in all, level 40 is usually your best bang for your buck, because going from level 40 beyond just costs so much more Stardust. It's really not worth it unless if you are very sure that you're going to be using that for a very long time. And for Metagross, it's just been so useful that I have, but I haven't done that for anything else. Actually, I think the only one that's above level 40 on my team right now is Lapras, because it's a healer, and even then I've only got it to level 41. Guards build 60% HP overall. Defense does not affect the HP amount that you gain. It just reduces the damage you take. So it kind of just enhances the shield in that regards. And the guard doesn't matter if your Pokemon has 1 HP or 1,000. A level 3 shield will always give it 60 temporary hit points, and its maximum is 3 times those shields, or 180 if you're level 3, or just 60 at level 1. Finally, we're going to get to healing. And I put shield. I should have put healing here, but the level 1 is only 8% of your max HP, and level 3 is 16. And I put the HP values, they're right within 1 or 2 units. They're CP calculated. I don't have the perfect formula for all of these data points, but I do have enough Metagrosses to check, and I was well within my tolerance of error for the amount of max HP going from 0 to 15. And as you can see, it's 9 HP at level 20, going from 0 HIV to 15, and up to 13 HP at level 50, from 0 IV to 15. And from 10 to 15 at level 50, you're talking about 4 HP, which is not a lot, and it's not even enough. It's just enough to maybe change a rounding error at level 50 at a 1% shield. And even at a 2% shield, you're still talking at just going from, if you round it up, you'll go, you won't change, or if you round it down, it will move up. So really, for healers, even for Lapras, who has almost 100 more or 70 more HP, which we'll get to on the next slide, HP IVs aren't super powerful. Getting anything above really 10 is fine, but I'll get more into that detail later. And even going from level 40 to level 50, at least for a Metagross for healing, you're only talking about 1 to 2 more HP depending on the type of heal at level 3, and it's half as much if it's only level 1. So really, level 40 is, once again, even for healing, your best bang for your buck. So now a lot of people have been asking me, and you know what? Honestly, it's a really good question. And please, if you have any questions on anything that I've been going over, don't hesitate to put them in the comments. I usually respond within 12 to 24 hours, depending on my sleep schedule and work schedule. Sometimes, though, if you catch me when I'm at my desk, I will respond right away as well. But let's just do a comparison on Metagross on top here versus Lapras all at heal 3. And you could see, even with a Lapras IV of 10 to 15, the healing is only 1, at best, 1 unit difference, and it's mostly a rounding error. So for like healing and all that, so many people worry about the IVs. And even for healing, which is really the most sensitive out of all of them, you're not seeing a very large difference. Now, yes, for your attacker, are you going to choose a 15 IV over 11 IV for the attack? Or when you want a healer for your HP, yeah, you're going to try to go for that. But don't worry about the other quote, quote, sacrificing stats. If you're going to have your unit as a pure attacker, only worry about the attack IV. Now, if it's a 98 and it's a 14 attack, 15-15, and you go mad, I know it's better to have the 15 attack, 10-10, but I like the 98. You do you, and honestly, rock that 98 or rock that hundo. I'm jelly of you, and congratulations. But all in all, so many people really worry about IVs, and even I do, and I know how little they really mean. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate for all of that. But for a Lapras, the reason why I consider it an S and S plus type of unit is because if you have it at level 40 and it has a 15 HP IV, which mine does, it heals 37 HP to each of the 4 Pokemon. Even if you only have one other that you need to heal, including yourself, that is better than putting a shield on top of you, especially if you've already got that shield and this is a free action. You're basically able to give a level 2 shield in full HP to other units on your team at will. And it is a very powerful assist, especially if the Pokemon that you're going against is just spamming area attacks and not focusing on the provoke on the guard. So with this is going to be, if you're going to be using an all, like my Metagross is. And I'm going to stop everybody right here. This is not the end of the video. I've got a couple more things I'm going to go through that is going to be probably more useful than most other people, or maybe not people, but most of the other slides that I put up there for your planning. But this is just going to be what it's going to be used for all of these. I'm going to talk about this, and then the next couple of pages will be important for each and every unit type. But first, you're always going to attack your max attack to the maximum if you can, or at least to level 2. This is by far the biggest bang for your buck. Does not use any Stardust. Yes, it does use a lot of particles, but no Stardust, and that's really all that matters. 1400 particles, max particles, does take 2 days, but all in all, it is definitely worth it. And so far, the only thing that bucks this is the legendary birds have an additional 30 candy expense on top of everything else. So a 100 normal candy for level 2 is 130 for the legendary birds. 50 normal candy to open up a skill is 80. I don't know why they did that. It is really annoying. Maybe it's a bug, but it really... I still am glad that I fought for those legendary birds, but it's really, really annoying. Next, I would increase max guard from level 0 to level 3. That is 1800 particle with 150 normal candy and 40 XL. All in all, this is very useful. As I say, this is going to be for a hybrid. This is not for specific units, which I'll talk about later. Then you level your unit to level 40. This will cost 248 candy and 225,000 Stardust to go from level 20 to 40. A little less if you got it weather boosted. This is where I think the unit will be both an attacker and defender hybrid, and this is where you really need to, you could just be okay to stop. Now, if you have a unit that has high HP, so at level 40, if it has an HP of around 170 or above, then you should probably increase max spirit as high as you can. At least a level 2 if you can, level 3 if you have enough XLs. But overall, I would almost rather see you spend the XLs going from level 40 to 50, but it's one of those that either or is just extra overkill. and my Metagross has, but only because I know I'm still going to be using it for probably 6 more months. And who knows, it might even be still useful for 2 years down the line. Going to level 50 from 40 requires 298 XL candy and 250,000 Stardust, and it doesn't really buy you a lot for all that costs. That is the last thing that you do. Now with that, let's actually go with what most of your units are going to look like. So how are we going to make the determination of units? So maxing out each unit is incredibly expensive, as I just showed before. Instead, we're going to identify each element for attack and then identify potential tanks. So what do I mean? I only care about flying units having one main attacker. We don't need to have 2 different flying units, 2 different fire units, 2 different X units, Y units, Z units. I will choose the best attacker. Gigantamax units are the best attacking Pokemon for that element. Now, if no Gigantamax has that element, then a Dynamax will be taking its place. We use the highest attack, so we have right now, in the making of this video, 2 Water Gigantamax units. Kingler is far superior to Blastoise, and Inteleon theoretically can be stronger than Kingler for when it receives its Gmax, but we don't know when it's going to be. So my Kingler is going to be my attack unit that I'm going to build from here on out. Defending units are a little bit more difficult to identify, and these are what I level when needed. And generally, what I try and do is, as long as it's got a decent attack and it doesn't look like it's an absolute glass cannon, I'll be honest, even my Gmax Gengar actually got used as a tank on one battle because it was so strong against certain units. That really my strongest one of each, I usually do try to give it some guard so that I don't have to rush when we get news to use my max points to raise the guard levels on everything. But I do have my tier lists, which I will point to the nearest tier list in this video during this slide. I will try to update it monthly, and that's something that you can go through to just make sure, hey, do I have the best units, at least not leveled, but at least having the max guard going up, and then you could always level the units to the best of your ability later. Finally, healing units are just based on their max HP. Sometimes some battles are just not healing capable. My Lapras, I am going to focus on because that is by far going to be the best healer that we have for a very long time. There will be other units, and some people have their Greedent leveled, and I will say that's not horrible as long as you have Max Spirit on it greatly leveled, because Greedents have a lot of HP and actually act as really good heal tanks. The most optimal path is to identify what attackers you have for each element, and my tier list will usually say if you have an A or an S. Some of the A's may have elements that are Gmax or stronger above them, but I still identify those as really good tanks. So I try to give explanations on why I move certain things around. Some people go, hey, Venusaurs are better than Rillaboom. And I go, yes, but I like my Rillaboom because of this. And I have the Rillaboom a little bit higher because, I treat it as a really strong hybrid tank and all that jazz. Most importantly, and I didn't put this down, is that I highly suggest that you only put resources into one of each type of Pokemon and don't say I have 2 Blastoise tanks. Generally, if I have a Kingler and a Blastoise, yes, the Blastoise is going to be the better tank, but I'm not going to leveling up my Kingler to 40 because it's the better attack will be a better tank than a 20 Blastoise with the max guard filled out. So with that, that's my other high suggestion, to try to get the most out of your account without, spending millions upon millions of Stardust, which I did initially, and now I've learned not to do that. All right, so your attack unit focus. Obviously, the initial focus is to get to max attack from level 1 to 3. Biggest bang for the buck. Nothing else to say. Then you level the unit to level 4. And unless if you are soloing or there you have 3 friends that have, absolute poor Pokemon that you need to basically you're soloing anyways, there's no real need to go above level 4. If you really want to do that to help your community and to make them have to focus a little less on tactics, go right ahead. No one's going to stop you. And you're really doing something good for your community overall, or even if you're flexing to help the community, still a big help. As I say, level 50 is wasteful, but the really high end Gigantamax will be in that's an attack will be worthwhile only because you might get a whole year of using them. And at that point, okay, fine. But even then, as I say, it's only my Metagross, and that's partially because I had 8,000 Beldum candy, and I have a really powerful 98 Metagross, and I'm flexing on this. So it's not really for the use, it's honestly just for the internal flex. Tank defense units, this is a little bit more complicated, but not much. You want to do max guard from level 1 to level 3. You will be using this very often if you tank. And in my group, I'm the raid leader. I will tell the group, I will tank. You guys can just focus on attack. And we have done very, very well. We've only failed once, and that was when we were undermanned and we failed because I ran out of time and it was down to 2%. And I would say that's one fail out of 140, 150 battles. And we only coordinate on getting into groups, and then we allow the groups to coordinate amongst themselves. So this has been a super great strategy, and all of my battles, I bring my son with me, and my son only has level 20 Pokemon that has generally level 2 attacks. So he is hanging on my coattails, but as I say, he doesn't play nearly as much as I do, and it's not hurting anybody because of the team that I bring in. And with these strategies, you should be able to get a 95 to 99% win rate overall. Next, go to level 40 after going max guard 1 to 3. Um, this is really all you need, even if you're soloing up to level 3. If you're going level 4 or 5, then yes, you'll have to go higher for solo. Or you could also use max mushrooms, but those are too damn expensive. And I would rather focus on strategies that will get you to not spend a lot of money. Finally, number 3, if it has more than 150 HP at level 40, I would give it 2 level. And if it's a real top healer like a Lapras, then go with the level 3 if you can. And to be honest, at that point, that if it's a tank there that can heal, I would also give it a second level in attack, but that's even lower priority, just because of the fact that that's going to be something that you're going to be using a great deal on. But you don't really need to do that at all. That's once again, oh, I got the 500 candy and it's a Wednesday and I don't really feel like doing a max battle today. All right, I can spend the max particle points. It's a relatively low cost transaction. Then finally, 4 level to 50, but once again, not needed. Finally, we have our healing tank unit focus. This, you're going to want to increase the max spear from level 1 to 3, then level 40, then you're going to max guard level 2, then max guard to level 3. And I have those separate because don't really need to unless if you're going to be doing a tanking job. And I have been using Lapras as my ice and water tank. Yes, Blastoise is a better water tank than Lapras, but because I can also heal with such ferocity with my Lapras compared to Blastoise, that I prefer bringing in my Lapras. Yes, I take about 9% more damage on average than the Blastoise, might be 10%, but still, comparatively, I can heal for over 30% more. And if I need to heal once, it will outperform Blastoise overall. And because of that, that's why my Lapras has a max guard level 3, max spirit level 3. And actually, because it's also a decent attacker, it's my other my other what I call hybrid unit where I have everything level 3, but it's level, even when I have Lapras so highly, is only 40. It's either 40.5 or 41. I don't know, but it's not very much above level 40. So, all in all, these are my kind of really broad strategies. I've gone in a lot of detail. I've done a lot of math, and if you've stayed this far, thank you very much. But if you've got any questions or if you've got anything, go, hey, Mad, can you go into more detail about this in another video? I'll be happy to do so. I know I haven't asked, but please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this, as this was a pretty long video overall, but I think it's pretty important. So good luck, everybody. I'm going to keep up my focus, especially on Dynamax and Gigantamax. I will also do important news for Pokemon Go in general, but I've been a little slow in that regards because we've had so much Dynamax and Gigantamax going on that I really needed a focus for my community on that part. But you'll see more of those normal videos from me as well. More importantly, though, good luck, enjoy everything, and I promise I'll do better.